like going to war. You know, when you get in that foxhole in a war, that's where you bond, right? But I loved it. I loved every moment of it. When I talk about I want to be somebody so bad, it just ate me up inside. I see that in you. There ain't nobody like me.
The odds are like this of us surviving. I'm not talking about becoming big. I'm not talking about becoming number one. I'm talking the odds are just like this of us surviving.
In the face of impossible odds, those original 85 licensed people in one state began to grow. In 1977, A.L. Williams produced $150 million of term life insurance. But by 1980, that number had already grown to $4.1 billion. The 100-year-old paper tiger started to fight back.
That was at the time when they was trying to outlaw our product and just throw us out of business.
Here in Georgia?
Here in Georgia, and you and I and Bo Adams went down to a hotel room, and it was filled with smoke. We had a bunch of politicians in there, and you got up and gave the best presentation I've ever heard you give in my life. And when you got through, one of the politicians got up and he says, "Art, there's no problem at all. All you got to do is come up with $10,000 or $15,000 and we'll solve your problem." And I watched your face just go completely white.
And we said, well, if we have to buy that kind of favor, right, then our competition got a lot more money than we got. You know, we can't live. I mean, the only thing we got is doing what's right.
If you gonna lay your life on the line for something, you like to be around somebody like me. If you want to whip Art Williams, then folks, it's gonna be one long, bloody, drawn-out fight.
This was my dadgum life. This wasn't any game. This was serious dadgum business.
And I get emotional when I think about what the competition did to us in the past. They loved rubbing our nose in it like you can't believe. The crap and abuse we had to take before we were strong and powerful and before we could attack like we can do right now, I'll never forgive them, folks, as long as I'm president of this company.
The power of what's right and the power of men and women willing to dream again would not be stopped. The color of the map began to change.
A.L. Williams was born believing in taking a position. We believe in buy term and invest the difference. We believe in selling the American consumer what we own on our own life. And we believe in doing it the same way, selling the same product, the same concept every dadgum time. You might not buy our product and you might not come to work with our company, but you dadgum sure know where we stand every time.
In 1984, A.L. Williams won its first national championship by beating Prudential.
In the largest industry in the world, there's a new number one. And you know why? It ain't Prudential, dadgum.
In 1984, A.L. Williams also began expansion into Canada to take on another industry giant that had been in business since 1874. The battle that was being waged in the lower 48 would prove no easier north of the border.
I was talking to Dick Morgan in Canada. I was calling Dick to congratulate him. Man, he says, "Oh, there's some hairy crap going on up here." All they need to do in Canada is get us mad. Man, they get us mad and they better watch out because we going after their, right? So we visited with the regulators for a year. We visited with the politicians in Canada for a year. And I'm telling you right now, you Canadians, those assholes up there ain't no better than the assholes in the United States.
In 1985, A.L. Williams beat the number 2 and number 3 life insurance companies combined. Then, in 1986, the ragtag army of A.L. Williams termites beat the number 2, number 3, and number 4 companies combined in life insurance issued, with over $71 billion. And that battle being waged in the North? In 1986, A.L. Williams would topple the century-old behemoth London Life by issuing $1.9 billion of life insurance in only 2 years. And in year 3, A.L. Williams became number 1 in all of Canada.
You know why? I could die today a happy man. I'm so dadgum proud to be part of A.L. Williams, I can't stand it.
Throughout the 80s, A.L. Williams would continue to run up the score and completely dominate the largest industry in American business. In 1989, A.L. Williams had $93 billion of life insurance issued, with its closest competitor far behind.
You know what? I like being number one. It feels good to be the best, to be the dadgum national champ, right? You want to knock A.L. Williams off? Well, you better bring your dadgum lunch, because we ain't going to give it to you. It's going to be a long, bloody, tough fight, I guarantee you. We'll fight you in the morning, in the afternoon, all night, and all the next dadgum day. Folks, think about this. In any city, village, or town in Canada or the United States, I don't care if it's 15 million people like in Los Angeles or 10,000 people in Cairo, Georgia, where I grew up. You walk in any city or any town and you find a local insurance office, and you walk in there and you ask them if they ever heard about A.L. Williams, and their face gets red and they start squirming in their chairs. You know what? You know what? Everybody in the largest industry in the world knows A.L. Williams is the undisputed leader. You're number one in everybody's mind.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, we got a lot to do today. We're going to talk about in great detail how we did it at A.L. Williams. Cheryl, come up here a second, if you will, baby. Get that microphone. Cheryl, long-time A.L. Williams stud from California. Cheryl, talk to me just a second. I want to know two things. What was your number one takeaway from last night? And number two, how are you and your people using the videos? Is it helping you in your business?
Absolutely. First of all, my takeaway last night was that I love it more today than I did when we beat Prudential. I look at the history, and that I got a chance to grow up. We were talking to Josh on the way over, and I just said, who I am today is a result of Art's personal management philosophy. I mean, it's just, you're my hero, you always will be. Mm-hmm. And the way we use the videos is every meeting we start with what we get that week. I have them cataloged now, so I know different people who need to hear from you, and we just send it to them as they need that. I talked to Angela yesterday. I said when we showed her partner video that she did last week, I said every woman, every man, everyone, I saw them all crying, I started crying. It was like, it takes us back to the fundamentals that helped us win, and that never changes.
You know what, one thing, Cheryl, that I think y'all ought to think about. If you think the videos make sense, like I said, there's so much crap out there on the internet that really when you get in sales, I mean, this is one thing that we didn't have to deal with back in 1977 and 67 when I started. You get out there and you miss a sale, or your best guy quits and you get low. And then you hear this somebody say something that, he's knocking it out of the ballpark, he's making $1 million a month and all that kind of crap, And everybody wants a quick fix, everybody wants the secret, like me and my diet, all the time I'm looking for, somebody coming out with a new diet, and I want to go try it and all that kind of crap, and diets don't work, for heaven's sake. And I know that, but you sort of get, I don't know, it just grabs you and you want to go try it, right? You say, maybe this is it. And I think that's a killer right now in this business. We're going to go over a system today. And I'm going to tell you over and over again, you've got to do 100% of the system. You can't just pick and choose a little bit of the system. And somehow, if you got to get a system, Cheryl, is my point. And if you think this system makes sense, then to me, I would have all of my people subscribe, because we're building a catalog. I'm trying to tell the complete A.L. Williams story. We've still got a few more months to go. But, when you get in that low moment, you'll have a place to go and say, well, I need I need to know a little bit about recruiting, or I need to know a little bit about building personal relationships, you know, or something like that.
Mental toughness.
Mental toughness, yeah. And so anyway, I would suggest that you get all of your people subscribing, you know, so they not only get what you want them to see at your training class and all that kind of stuff, you know, but when they'll have a place to go.
Yes.
And just say, does that make sense?
I want to tell you that everyone that I get, I listen to them first and I cry before I can get them to my team, because I just remember, you know, that I got to be a part of it. I thank God every day. Yeah. Thank you, Art. We love you.
Love you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you. Hey, you've always done it big, but here. Gus, come up here. Gus, this is my buddy. I met Gus a number of years ago when he came up from South Florida and shared an office with my grandson-in-law, Scott Godfrey. And I've loved this guy for a long time, and I love the way he treats his people, builds relationships, you know, and he's a stud. You know, he's an example of doing it first. And what was your number one takeaway last night, Gus? And then how are you using the video? Are they helping, you know, does it help keep your people focused on the important things they ought to be doing?
Absolutely. You win with your heart, not with your head. It's your passion. It's that one to scrap iron. It's the heart, you know. It's the passion. Not just the money. It's not just the plaques. It's about correcting an injustice. It's about, you know, winning big for you, for your people. It's a team effort. This is bigger than any one person. And you're my hero, Art.
Love you. Hey, tell me this deal about building RVPs. It seems like to me in Primerica, there's not an emphasis on building RVPs. You know, it's like, I mean, I don't know how to verbalize it other than say it.
That is true.
Did I verbalize it?
You verbalize it.
Yeah, okay. Where I used to tell everybody in A.O. Williams that in my mind, every recruit you have to look at as an RVP. You have to treat them, you know, people live up to your expectations of them. And if you look at them as a, you know, pissant, you know, that's what they're going to do, really, seriously. And a lot of people, this is another thing. Boy, you come to these gigantic meetings and everything, and you look at this guy's people over there, and he's produced some stud RVPs, and you hadn't got anybody. And if you're not careful, you can begin to look at your people and say, man, I wish I had those guys' people, and all that kind of stuff. And it's that's another danger today when you've got all this success out there. Back when we were starting A.O. Williams, we didn't have anybody making any money, you know, and so you just didn't have that temptation, you know, to say, oh, I wish I was more like him, or I wish my people were more like them. And as a leader, and I learned that in my first football team, you know, when I had those 75 people come out for football at spring practice, and all of a sudden I had 17, you know, playing in a tough football league. And I started looking at those guys and I said, wow, what in the crap I've got myself in for? And I was in a real mess. And I had to change the way I looked at that team, you know? And I changed. And that was the low point in my life and my professional life. And I learned an incredible lesson that your people are going to live up to your expectations of them. You got to look at your people as winners. You got to talk to them as winners. And you know, it has to be real, Gus. It can't be just, you know, BS and all that kind of stuff. And that's part of that building relationship, building friendships and all that. And so, you know, what I tried to encourage everybody in A.O. Williams is to look at every single recruit as an RVP. You know, everyone is an RVP. You talk to them as an RVP, and today I'm going to give you 5 steps that you've got to go through to build a successful business. And you've got to do each one of those 5 steps. And if you don't do each one of those 5 steps, as an example, you're going to hear me repeat this till it makes you sick today, you know. is not selling on the first interview. And the reason you don't sell on the first interview, I used to look at the odds in football, studying football again, and I found out that on 4th and 1, about 80-90% of the time you make it if you go for it. Well, so I made a decision as a coach that anytime, I told our football team, this is what we're going to do. Whenever it's 4th and 1, I don't care where the ball is, we're going for 4th and 1, And if we don't make it, we don't deserve to win, okay? That was my philosophy. We were playing the #1 team in Georgia, Waycross, Georgia. We were ahead of them 7-0. Third quarter, the ball was on our 20-25-yard line, and it was 4th and 1. And buddy, that was a gut checking. If I'd showed weakness to my team then, and say, well, I wanted to punt more than anything in the world, But I said, we'll never punt on 4th and 1. We went on 4th and 1 and we missed it. And the other team went in and scored and tied us up 7-7. And the fans in the stands were screaming and hollering what a stupid idiot I was and all that kind of stuff. Well, we came back and won. And it was the greatest victory of my whole coaching career. But, you got to figure out the odds and, and all that kind of stuff. And so I looked at what we did. There was not any rule in the early days that you didn't sell on the first interview. I mean, I never sold on the first interview because to me, it just was common sense. I don't want anybody coming in trying to sell me something. I want to think about it. I want you to talk to me. I want you to give me a proposal and educate me. And Mike Tuttle, he even encouraged people not to buy on the second interview, And so by doing that, the odds are better. Not only that you're going to get the sale, the odds are better you're going to get the sale, but the odds are better that you're going to begin to build that trusting relationship. And so you might, if you get the sale and you don't pressure them on the first interview, the odds are better that you're going to get a recruit. Then the odds are better if you train them right, that you're going to get a sales leader, and then a district leader. And then if you don't do the things I taught you about, every one of them just right, that train's going to fall off the track and you're going to lose a potential RVP. Does that make sense, Gus?
Absolutely.
I'm proud of you, buddy.
Love you.
I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, buddy. Okay, all right, here we go. Rule number one. To win in business, you don't win with dreams. You don't win with desire. You don't win with relationships. You don't win with systems. You don't win with money. It sounds like a contradiction on everything I talked about last night, right? But you don't win with those kind of things first. The one and only thing that allows you to win in the free enterprise system is giving people a better product at a better price. You can't fake it till you make it. You can't BS, yourself to financial freedom and building a big business. It's got to be real. Your edge has got to be real. You've got to have a better product at a better price, and then number two, you got to do it better than the competition. You got to have a better product at a better price, and then you got to do it better than the competition. In the life insurance industry, for the previous 100 years to A.O. Williams, they got fat and they got lazy, and the life insurance industry screwed the consumer with a crappy product and at a ridiculous price. Every life insurance company out there had term insurance. We didn't invent term insurance, but they decided to sell a $100,000 policy for $1,200 when they could have sold it for $200, right? Now, of course, we all know the reason for that, of course, is because of commission. If you're making 50% of $1,200, that's $600. And remember, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, all the life insurance agents were full-time. A.O. Williams just didn't bring buy term and invest the difference 100% to this industry, but we brought the concept of part-timers in here. And why did we bring the part-timer concept in here? Because it allows you to recruit a better quality person, right? We were trying to recruit people that were influential people in a community, that they're leaders in a community, that had a great reputation in a community, that had friends, right? And so by allowing people to come on a part-time basis to make extra income. And who needs extra income? Almost everybody out there, right? And so we had the best extra income opportunity in the world. And so that allowed us to recruit a better quality of person. But look, this is staggering, you know. The full-time, because you're full-time, the life insurance industry forced their life insurance agents to sell the wrong stuff. So A.O. Williams was born February 10, 1977 with a better idea at a better price. We could go in a home and we could cut the cost of life insurance 70 or 80%. And there's so many things that A.O. Williams different from multi-level marketing, but you know, in most multi-level marketing things out there, you know, you're selling soap and shoe polish and vitamin tablets and crap like that, you know, where you make 17 cents. The thing that impressed me, one of my first impressions at A.O. Williams, is here was a football coach, and I had a securities license and an insurance license. In those 3 months that it took me to get that license, I was just talking to everybody, all my teacher friends, coaching friends, parents of my players, that kind of thing. Everybody they were screwed up. They were screwed up. Almost 100% of them had cash value life insurance. Almost 100% of them didn't have any savings program, or they had it in a Christmas savings account at a bank paying 0.75%. Or teachers credit union paying 2%, crap like that. People back in the 1970s and 60s, they didn't know what a mutual fund was, not people like me, right? And I could go in there, and then the IRA came along. And I'm going to show you some numbers today that just blow you out of the mind. But I could go in a house now, cut their costs 70 or 80% on life insurance, and give them a mutual fund and an IRA, and improve give them $400,000. $600,000, $1 million. It was unbelievable, the idea we had. So, you've got to have a system now. You can come up with a better idea and do it better than the competition. But then you've got to have a system to build this business. And as I look today, I gave this a lot of thought, folks. I gave this a lot of thought because, like I said, I've done this in a scattered way throughout the years, you know, but I don't think I've ever sort of consolidated everything into one presentation. And I believe there are 5 things. You've got to recruit right. You've got to train right. You've got to build trust and relationships. You've got to sell a big vision. People, I want to be somebody, it just killed me. It ate me up inside. Now, you know what? Every one of you understand that because that's you, right? Every piece of flesh that's ever been born in the history of the world, at some point in their life, they wanted to be somebody, right? Well, most people out there get slapped around and punched and knocked down and told over and over again, abused like crap, right? And when they see A.O. Williams, maybe they've almost given up, okay? But man, I want to reach inside their heart and give them a chance to dream again. Give them a chance to hope again. Give them a chance to be excited again, right? That's your job as a leader. And everybody wants to be part of something special. That was the crusade we began. That's why we were able to recruit the Hog and Bobby and Scrap Iron, right? Cheryl Bartlett. We had a crusade. That's how we unified everybody into one heartbeat, right? Our rallying cry was to destroy trash value life insurance. We had a big vision, and everybody bought into that, right? And you've got to do each one of those steps 100%. If you pick and choose, you're going to fail. The train's going to run off the track. Does that make sense? But at the end of the day, folks, it's still up to you. You can't be a dead butt and win in the free enterprise system, right? You've got to first recruit right. Let's talk about recruiting right. A.O. Williams, I said last night, if I had to tell you one sentence that would define A.O. Williams, it's A.O. Williams is a warm market company. We don't talk to strangers. We don't knock on a stranger's door. We don't call a stranger on a this is unbelievable to me. I've got a privacy thing on my telephone right here in Highlands, North Carolina, and you're not supposed to get in there unless you're not supposed to get in there, a solicitor, right? There's not a week, maybe not a day goes by that I don't get somebody call me stranger on the telephone. And here I'm sitting there watching the news or watching a movie or something like that, and I get a telephone call, and you can tell them when they call, right? And I don't cuss them out or anything like that, I just I don't care who they are. I don't care who they are, what kind of calls it is. It could be President Trump calling, or it could be the governor of North Carolina calling. So the assistant, let's say, I don't care who it is, I'm going to hang up. I don't talk to strangers. I don't want any stranger calling me on the phone. And do you think I'm going to let a stranger come into my home with my wife and two? Ain't no way I'd do that. Well, folks, I'm like everybody out there, right? I'm not going to let any stranger come into my home. We're a warm market company. We're a company that sells a big dream. We give people a chance to hope again, to dream again. I told you the story a million times that I believe that in high school, that's where I taught, in high school, that's for most kids, their peak years to dream and get excited about life. They come into that 9th grade and their eyes are as big as a baseball. They start driving or dating or playing on teams or on debate teams, or they're majorettes in a band, and they're just pumped up. They're excited about life. They got their coaches and teachers and fans and mamas and daddies and everybody tell them how great they are, how special they are, how unique they are. They're going to do wonderful things in their life. They're dreamers. And then they graduate and they get dumped out in the big bad world, and people start lying to them and screwing them and using them. And in one day, this pumped up, vibrant, pumped up human being becomes a shell of a man. They roll out of bed, they hit the floor, their foot hits the floor, and they developed an attitude that life's passed me by. That life's passed me by. That I can't dream again. That I can't hope again. That I can't get excited again. And A.L. Williams gives you that opportunity. A.L. Williams were big dreamers. This is the truth. Everything I'm telling you today is 100% the truth as I see it. Now, I can be screwed up, okay? But this is the 100% of the truth I see it as I see it. This was our vision. 85 people now in Atlanta, Georgia. This was our vision. We sat around and we said collectively, hey, do y'all know the first 3 weeks of A.L. Williams, we did not have a name? We did not have a name. We met at Bill Arenda's house, Red, if you remember. We had a party going on. Art Burgess is the one. We said we don't want a name that has anything to do with insurance because people ain't going to let you in the house, right? Or financial services, they ain't going to let you in the house. It's got to be a nondescript name, that people don't know nothing what you're doing, right? And so we're sitting there trying to come up with a name. 3 weeks. Art Burgess, one of the original 85 people, sat down and said, Art, what's your middle initial? What's your middle name? And I said, Lynch. And he said, well, why don't we call it A.L. Williams? Nobody will know what A.L. Williams is, right? Ain't that right? So that's how we got our name. Okay, folks, those are the kinds of discussions we had collectively as a group to get a goal, a vision. Everybody wants to belong to something great, so we gave. I talked last night about the big risk takers, people that gave up, bet their life on this thing. Well, what were we betting our life on? Well, we sat around. We came up with this vision. We said our vision at A.L. Williams is we were involved in a great event, this great happening. We were collectively forming a team to go out and destroy trash value life insurance. Isn't that something? Man, what a dream. 90% of all life insurance was trash value life insurance. We sat around collectively as a group and we said, how can we best do that? And we said, well, and this back to our coaches, most of the people were coaches then. We said, well, the way to do that is you got to cut the head of the snake off, right?
So who's the biggest, most popular company out there? And it was Prudential. We said, okay, if we want to destroy trash value life insurance, the first thing we got to do is we got to go kill Prudential. Now, you know what? Angela gets mad when I throw her under the bus, you know. But she said, oh, I can't stand for you to get up there and talk about killing somebody and just, you know, I got to say, you know, you got to kill the head of the snake, right? And Prudential was the head of the snake, right? And so we said, okay, we're going after Prudential. Now, how screwy is that dream, right? They had 40,000 agents. They were all over the United States. They spent mega millions of dollars advertising. Every football game you see, they had this rock, you know, floating down the river and everything. How could this little group of people hope to one day bring down the largest industry, over 100-year-old industry? Well, y'all did it, Eves, in Canada, right? London Life was the biggest, most reputable company. They've been in business since 1875, right? Folks, you've got to have that. People want to belong to those kind of things, right? They want to do something special with their life. And then the other part of our big dream is we talked back in 1977 about being financially independent. We said one day what we want to do is we want our leaders to make big money, build big teams, and build financial independence for their family. We had a big dream. And you know what? Everybody has their favorite go-to things, but my favorite quote of all time was Winston Churchill. And he said, you know, he had so many great quotes. What a great man. He said, there comes a special moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. That special opportunity, when he seizes it, will fulfill his mission, a mission for which he is uniquely qualified. In that moment, he finds greatness. It's his finest hour. See, I told our AOE's people for 2 years that the odds were about like this of us surviving, but I'd always tell them at the end of that conversation, but I feel it. I just feel it. I got to tell you, I feel it. I feel it. I feel it inside. I believe we're going to do it. I believe we're going to do it. We probably ain't. I want you to understand the odds are against it, but I feel it. So, we had our dream, and we were recruiting 4 and 5 pointers. For what reason? Number one reason? To stay out of the coal market, right? To go recruit them and their friends and not ever put us in a position where we had to cold call. Now, let me give you an unwritten law. People will recruit people like them. So if you go recruit unemployed people, they're going to recruit unemployed people, right? If you go recruit young single people, they're going to recruit young single people. But the same thing applies to the warm market. If you go recruit coaches that are leaders in a community and leaders of kids, they're going to recruit their warm market, right? If you go recruit teachers with a warm market, they're going to recruit teachers. Preachers with a warm market, they're going to recruit preachers. Firemen with a warm market, they're going to recruit their fellow firemen. Does that make sense? Okay? So you want to recruit leaders, prominent people, influential people in a community. Now let me tell you this. Let me give you another unwritten law. You don't recruit anybody you wouldn't invest $100,000 with. You don't recruit anybody you would not have in your home. I mean, you would not recruit somebody. Now, I know this is not politically correct, but I don't care about being politically correct, right? I mean, you don't recruit these people with earrings in their tongues and their nose and eyelids and purple hair and people that you can smell a mile away, you know, like they hadn't taken a bath in 2 or 3 weeks, right? Now, that's awful to, that's awful to say, right? But I don't want... I ain't going to do it. I ain't going to do it. Okay, so let me tell you how the system works now. Let me tell you how the system works. ITT moved me. When they hired me, I was making $10,700 a year, head football coach and athletic director at Kendrick High School. And I was making another $10,000 or $15,000 part-time. And so after the third conversation with the president of ITT, I kept telling him that they're double dumb not to hire part-time people, you know, for all the reasons we talked about. And then he just got tired of it, you know, and he said, Lord, I want to see if you can hire part-time people. So I'm going to give you, I'll guarantee you $25,000 plus what you can make on commission to see you come in and see if you could hire part-time people. So I started recruiting part-time people in Columbus. And then 1 week out of every 6 weeks, I'd fly to Denver, Colorado, the home office, and they would have all the brains sit down and analyze me, what we were doing, and all this kind of stuff, you know. At age 27, I took my first airplane ride to Denver, Colorado. And then after a year, he said, you know, Art, maybe the reason you're having all this success recruiting part-timers is you were a coach in Columbus and you were coach of the year and, you know, everybody knew you and respected you and all that kind of crap, you know. Let's see if you can go somewhere where you don't know nobody, okay? So they said you pick one of two places. You can go to Dallas, Texas or Atlanta, Georgia. They needed a manager there. So I went to Atlanta, Georgia. I go to Atlanta, Georgia, and then all of a sudden we bought a house in Snellville, Georgia, which is on the suburbs of Atlanta. And the reality of being in a strange place where you don't know anybody really hit me in the face. I didn't really anticipate that. I thought it was going to be as easy in Atlanta as it was in Columbus, where I knew everybody and everybody knew me. I mean, for 2.5 years, I was just tearing it up. I'd saved that $291,000 in today's dollars, right? And so I sat there and I said, wow, I don't know anybody, nobody, zero, zip. And so I start thinking, and I said, well, I'm a warm market guy. Now, a warm market is like so. Where you want to build your business ultimately is you want to build it in the warmest, the hottest market. Your hottest market is best friends, right? And so that's where you want to get to. But you got to start somewhere, right? And here I was in a location where I didn't know nobody. And so your warm market begins to consist of parents of your kids' games, you know, Little League football and Pee Wee baseball and all that crap, right? And people that you work with and your neighbors. I mean, all of a sudden it gets colder and colder, but that's still your warm market, okay? And then, so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, I'm down here now in a cold, warm market. And I'm saying, well, I'm a coach. And so I can do coach talk, right? I mean, I can relate to coaches. And so Georgia put out a directory of all the high schools in Georgia, and they had all the principals, the assistant principals, the athletic directors, the head football coach, the head basketball coach, the head baseball coach, all that kind of crap, you know? And I said, just like Andy Young said, when Andy Young went to Washington, D.C., he was living with his parents, okay, in Washington, D.C., till he could find a home, right? And so he didn't know nobody in Washington, D.C. I don't reckon, did you know anybody basically in Washington? You was from there, so you had some friends there? Okay, well, I ain't going to use you anymore as an example, okay? Okay? Well, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. And, huh? Yeah, give me that back. Give me that back. There, Claudia. Tell you what, you ain't worthy of being a hog. Tell you right now. Okay, so here I am. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. Hey, now this is important, guys, so listen. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, in Snellville, and I'm in sort of a state of shock for a few days, okay? So I get this directory, and they had 7 high schools in in Columbus, where I was coaching at that time, and I worked for 2.5 years in my warm market there, okay? So I get this directory, and all of a sudden, I see all these schools around Atlanta. It's unbelievable, right? So I drew a map 30 minutes around my home from Snellville, Georgia, and there was 23 high schools, okay? So I sat down for the first time in my life. Now this sounds like cold calling, but then
you'd have to be a flaming idiot to think it's cold call, okay? Because I'm a coach, right? And so maybe I was kidding myself. Maybe this is cold calling, okay? But I never thought I was cold calling. Hey, it's important that you think right? And so I'm thinking I'm still in my war, and I still believe that. Today, I'm telling you right now, I never cold call, okay? I never knocked on, I never went to a stranger's home, right? All right? I got 23 head football coaches, all right? I write them a letter. And then I say, Coach Johnson, this is Art Williams. I don't know if you know me, but I was a head football coach out at Rector in Columbus, Georgia. And while I was coaching, I found the most phenomenal part-time job, and blah, blah, blah. Wrote him a letter, okay? First time in my life. I sent it to 23 head coaches. I wait 3 or 4 days. Not one single person answered that letter, okay? But it's still, I'm a coach, right? So I know coaches have an off period. I know coaches always have salesmen come in, football coaches, trying to sell them helmets and shoulder pads and jerseys, and crap like that, okay? So I know I can get in. And I know it's not like cold calling, right? And so 3 minutes from my house is South Gwinnett High School. So I go into South Gwinnett High School, and I ask somebody, where's the coach's office? He points me to the gym, to the coach's office. I go knock on the door. I said, Coach Johnson, I'm Art Williams. You remember getting a letter from me? He said, yes, I do, yeah. And I said, I had the best part-time job in the world, and I was just seeing if I could, get some coaches, going in Atlanta, and I just wondered if you'd be interested. He said, Art, I can't sell nothing. I'm not interested in selling nothing, And I threw that letter into a trash can. Okay, true story. And he said, but you know what, Art? My basketball coach came in and said, what is that? And I said, well, that's some coach that's come into Atlanta, and he's trying to recruit coaches part-time. It sounds hokey, right? It sounds hokey. And he said, I might be interested in that. And I said, well, Bobby, his name was Bobby Johnson. He later came on to A.L. Williams. And I said, would you mind introducing me to him? He said, no, it'd be great. So in my mind, I'm still in a warm market, right? So he calls T. Faircloth down, and he said, T. Faircloth, he introduces me to T. Faircloth. I start telling T. Faircloth about me saving $291,000, and his eyes get as big as a baseball, right? And so I recruit T. Faircloth. T. Faircloth was a basketball player at Auburn, okay? He's got some teammates, right? He's got Bob Buson, so he takes me to Bob Buson. Bob Buson takes me to Bob Miller in Fort Lauderdale. And then T takes me to Randall Walker. That was 4 teammates on the Auburn basketball. I go recruit the Auburn basketball team, right? Okay, so from them, I get people, right? Before you know it, we've got, I estimated, now this is an estimate, and I know some of you might say, well, what does that mean? Okay, well, it means something to me, okay? And so I estimate that we recruited probably 75,000 people and 4,000 RVPs, okay? Okay? I didn't know none of them. So once you get the system working, the system just works, right? And so I found myself, like down in Fort Lauderdale, Bob Miller recruits John Roy. He recruits Greg Fitzpatrick. Greg Fitzpatrick, Daddy, is the personnel director for all of Fort Lauderdale school districts. About 50,000 teachers right now. I spent so many hours with Greg Fitzpatrick, Daddy, it wasn't even funny. So we recruited 1 million people down in Fort Lauderdale, right? And so Randall Walker maybe knows somebody in Calgary. He hired, what's that guy's name? Arlie Larson. Arlie Larson, Eve's in Calgary, right? Arlie Larson hires 50,000 people. Before you know it, I got people all over the United States and all over Canada. 75,000 of them, 4,000 RVPs, and I don't know none of them. I don't know none of them. And I didn't recruit personally hardly any of them.
I got in that water. Hey, listen to this. This is going to blow your butt out of the water. Listen to this one. I had 23 schools around Atlanta, 30 minutes from my house, not around Atlanta. 23 schools. Not a single one of those people answered a letter. Now, I am a ball buster, as you can tell, right? I worked my butt off, folks. That reward and punishment and reward system I talked about last night, okay? I implemented that in my life, okay? Nobody ever answered that letter. I had 23 people, Gus, 23 people, coaches, within 30 minutes of my house, and I killed it for the next 13 years. And we beat Prudential, and we destroyed Trash Valley Life Insurance, right? And I could not find time to get to about 12 of those people, 30 minutes from my house. Because every time I recruited Bob Buson, he took me over here and over here and over here and over here, right? And you understand that? Is that unbelievable? I tried to get to those 23 people that were 30 minutes from my house, and I only got to 12 because the system took over. It's like one of those globs, what you see on TV, right? It just kudzu's a better example. Do y'all know what kudzu is? Right? Okay. You plant a little kudzu here, before you know it, it takes over the whole forest, right? That's what it was at A.L. Williams. You plant this dream. You plant this dream. You give people a chance to dream again, a chance to be excited, hope again. Then they go out, if you're in the right market, to 2 or 3 or 4 of their friends, right? And they go out to 2 or 3 or 4 of their friends. Then before you know it, we kill Prudential. But there are 3 rules to making this thing work. You got to have a system of no limits. I mean, folks, do you understand how unbelievable it is that you look at everybody's an RVP and you tell him, say, look, there is no limits to the money. Andy Young's payroll is $30 million a month right now. If Andy Young, right out of Wake Forest, tried to go to a bank and get a line of credit for those kind of money, $30 million a month is how much a year? $360 million a year. Now, can you imagine a bank doing something like that? Crap, no. That's what we do with everybody. There is no limit. I promise you, there is no limit. We'll never limit your income. We'll never limit the income of any of your people. Is that unbelievable? You have the ability to go out and recruit as many people as you want and promise them you've got all the money in the world. Is that unbelievable? Okay, that's no limits, okay? Then you've got to have the ability to look at your system, and you've got to simplify it to where people can understand it. Jeannie, come up here, please. Now, this ain't fair to you, but you got to have a simple system that's transferable. Okay, we did a presentation that you could do on a napkin. If you don't even need to carry. Here you go. You don't even need a napkin. I mean, you don't even need a briefcase to do A.L. Williams. In fact, a briefcase can be a liability in some cases, right? All you need is a napkin, a piece of paper. Jeannie, give me my split funding presentation. Look at this woman. Talk me through it as you go through now.
Okay, so that's $100 a month. Instead of spending $100 a month on trash value,
right,
you take $20 a month, get the $100,000 policy, take $80 a month, invest the difference.
Okay.
You'll have $365,000.
Okay.
So you buy 2, you get 2.
Yep.
Instead of the crap over here that you buy, which you buy 2, but you only get 1.
Right.
So if you die, you lose all your cash, which that's a bunch of crap.
Right.
Right? Spend
Right.
$100 a month for $100,000. You put all your money in, you lose it.
Right.
But you come with us, we give you $20 a month. You still get the $100,000, but you also get the $365,000.
Yeah.
Now, which one's better?
I like this one.
Let's do it.
Okay,
Just do
thank you.
it.
Thank you. Okay? Now, thank you. Okay? Now, There's so many variations of that, right? Okay, you can go in, Jeannie, and you can say, okay, we believe in split funding. And anybody can do this. I used to give a dime. Just pick people up out of our meetings and say, I'll give you a dime. Come up here and give me my split funding. After just seeing it for the first time, okay? Split funding. Okay, we believe in a concept called buy term and invest the difference. The industry believes in something called cash value, okay? They pay for two things and get one, right? And so for $100, let's say you had $100 a month to invest, you can buy a cash value policy for $100 and you can get $100,000, right? And anytime you die, they're going to give you $100,000. Now they also have a savings program built in the cash value policy, right? It's called cash value. Now, if you look at the policy, it doesn't call cash value, it's called cash surrender value, the contract. See, hey, I bet most Primerica recruits never know how to tear up a policy. Every one of the A.L. Williams recruits knew how to tear up a policy. You know, we would go circle. I got so many stories I could tell you, but I don't have time to tell you, right? But I would show them in the contract. I'd circle that. I'd pick up a policy and we'd circle it. We'd take a marker. We'd circle all this crap, right? It's not cash value. It's cash surrender policy. So if you die, you lose your savings. Now, that's enough to drop the crap right there, right? But the FTC said after 20 years, you get an average return of 1.2%. Of course, first year you get none. Of course, if you want to borrow your money, you pay them 7%, right? And then the average cash value policy, the cash surrender value is going to be worth about half a policy, $50,000, right? We believe in a concept called split funding where you pay for two things and you get two, right? You put $20 a month into a life insurance term policy and you get the same $100,000. And you know what, Jeannie? Our $100,000 spends just as good as their $100,000, right? And you take $80 and you put it into a mutual fund. The average return any 10-year period of time in a mutual fund is 10%. Now later on we came up with an IRA, right? Where you get another 20% or 30%, right? And so maybe you're going to have $325,000 or $500,000, right? And then you do your little summary down here, right? I mean, there's all kind of variations, right? And you can even add to that, Jeannie. You can add to that about the magic of compound interest. You can show, people ain't ever heard about this kind of crap, right? You know, you could go to Bank A and put $1,000 in Bank A and for 70 years and get a 5% return, and that's $30,000 you would get. You go to Bank B, put another $1,000 for 70 years and get 10% return. Your common sense tells you that's twice as much, right? But it's $780,000. You go to Bank C and put another $1,000 in there for 70 years and get 12%, just 2% more. Now that can't be worth that much, right? Well, it's $2.7 million. Is that unbelievable? And here we're talking about a 10% return on a mutual fund. If you're making $40,000 a year, you can put $5,000 into an IRA. You only pay taxes on $35,000. What's that worth? I don't know if that's 5%, 10%, 15%. I don't know. Let's say 12%, right? And then the money accumulates tax deferred. If you have an IRA for 40 years or 50 years, you don't pay taxes while it's accumulating, right? So what's that worth? Let's say it ain't worth but 8%. 8%. So now that's 30% return. Ain't that something? They're all kind of variations, right? Thank you. Okay. Okay, so now you got to recruit the right kind of people. Why do we recruit mostly 4 and 5 pointers? Warm market. It's a warm market. We want their market, right? Okay, now the next thing we got to do is we've got to train right, right? We got to train right. Now I know this is elementary, you know, but that's the business we're in, right? You got to simplify it and make it simple so everybody can understand it, right? See, A.L. Williams pays you. I want you to understand, get it programmed in your mind right now, okay? We train you, we pay you
to sell buy term and invest the difference. We don't sell any form of trash value life insurance, right? Number 2, we replace trash value life insurance. Your job when you come to work with us is to replace trash value. We want 90% of your recruits to be 4 and 5 pointers. Married, got kids, own a home, got a job, 25 to 75, right? Do we make exceptions? Sure we do. We want to give you the right to do 10% exceptions, you know? And we want to build teams. Y'all have a horrible licensing ratio, right? Well, you know, a couple things you can do to improve your licensing thing. If you go out and field train people and recruit 3 or 4 or 5 people for them, and they've got a little team, the gold mine in this business is overrides, right? And so if you go recruit, let's say Andy Young, and you go recruit 3 people for Andy Young. And then you're field training and you go recruit 3 people here, right? Before you know it, he's got a little team. And maybe he's got just $500 a month coming in overrides, or $1,000 a month coming in overrides. That's unbelievable for a part-timer, right? So you think the odds are better that he's going to get a license, right? Okay, another thing we did to help people get licensed is if I take Andy Young again out, and I wanted people they always people to field train people to a sales leader or a district leader position, right? I made as many as 75. We had a coach that won 2 national championships. He was a baseball coach at the University of Georgia. I made probably 75 sales with him. I don't know how many RVPs I got from him, but he just didn't have any confidence. It's hard to believe, won a national championship, 2 national championships in baseball, right? But he just loved to hear me talk, you know? And he could set up the appointments, and I always wanted to get somebody that could start me off the week like Monday night. That was just I just wanted a Monday night, 2 appointments on Monday night, right? And he would give me 2 appointments every Monday night. We did that for months. I did like 70, 75 sales with that joker, right? So if you go out and you take Andy, let's say, and you make 3 sales with him, now you can't pay him anything until he gets a license, right? But if let's say you've made 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 sales with him, now we would split commissions back then, and we would call that training deal, okay? And a little gray area, okay? But it's, I mean, we could fight it if a regulator wanted. They checked us out. They checked us out like you can't believe. We were the most checked out company in the history of the universe, right? And so what we did is we basically split. Randall Walker came up with this. We basically split commissions. So in making that little $12 I showed you last night, you know, we'd make about $200, and we'd give him, Andy, $100, and we'd give me $100, okay? And so, but we had to hold that into an account over here, right? And so we would build that up maybe to $500. But the only way he was going to get that $500 is to get a license. Did that make sense? And then your job is to promote RVPs, right? Okay, I know you're going to get sick of hearing this today. You never sell on the first interview. You never sell on the first interview. Now, ITT sold on the first interview. ITT sold on the first interview. Every other company in life insurance had these full-time agents out there sold on the first interview. That's what they were trained to do, okay? We didn't sell on the first interview because it's just common sense. It's stupid. It's stupid to sell on the first interview because the odds are the train's going to run off the track, right? You might get the sale, but you might lose the recruit. You might get the sale and you might get the recruit, lose the recruit, but then you might lose a sales leader. You know, if you don't do it, you got to start day one doing it right, right? And because we didn't sell on the first interview, we found that it wasn't a rule, but we just found it. This was common sense. We made more sales, we built stronger relationships, and recruited better quality of people, right? So, didn't have a rule. It was just common sense. I tell you what, I feel like I'm boring me actually. Okay? Now, okay, look here. Now this is something you need to know about because you don't know it, right?
It's awful. First thing I look at when somebody tells me this guy's a stud, okay, I look at your licensing percent, right? Now we average 50%, wanted to do 100%, but we averaged 50. That meant some of our people did 80% and some of them did 20%. And I was always in the crowd of some people that did 20%, right? Trying to get them up to 80%, right? But we averaged 50%. Go look at your licensing percentages, right? But we found by recruiting 4 and 5 pointers, having standards, that we didn't have any rule to do this. We just figured this out. We just made common sense. More people got a license, they made more money, and they built bigger teams. So why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you raise your standards in your recruiting? Now, the first interview, the first thing I said when I went into a home, I'm not here to say anything. My company will not allow me to say anything. I didn't tell him this. My objective was to do my little split funding presentation, show him what we did was pick up his policy at no cost, I'd like to pick up your policies and see if I can save you a lot of money. I promise you if I can't do 2 things, if I can't give you the same amount of protection you have right now and cut your costs 70 or 80%, or most people were underinsured. Prudential's average size policy back then was $4,500. So most people were underinsured. And I said the second thing I might do if you're underinsured is I can take the same dollars you're now spending and give you 8 to 10 times more life insurance. Those are big dollars, right? And so I wanted to leave with the policies if I could on the first interview, but I'd tell them I'm not here to sell. I wanted to put them at ease, right? We were always friends talking to friends. Now folks, you got to ingrain this in your head. When I went to Robert Kelly, my first sale made that $324. Folks, I went in my Bermuda shorts, my coaching shorts, and my coaching shirt, right? I was talking to my assistant coach, for heaven's sake. I didn't have but one suit back then to start with, but if I wore a suit and a coat and a tie and all that crap, he would know somebody was coming to stick it up his butt. Ain't that right? Ain't that right? You don't talk to friends that way. You don't go to somebody like Tom Hopkins and say, this is the way you ask the question. I mean, my thing is the worst mistake Tom Hopkins, some of these people would say, is they'll ask them how you feel, right? That was my closing. I'd talk for an hour and I'd say, well, how's this sound? And if he said, not too good. And so I'd talk for another hour. And then I'd say, well, how did it sound? Right? I mean, that's the way you talk to friends, right? You look like a friend and you talk like a friend. You don't ever think about, I never thought about what do you say to overcome an objection. You just say what you have to say to a friend. One of the things in training people is the new recruit has to set up the appointment, right? I would take a new recruit and I'd say, now look, the only way you're going to lose money in this deal, is not set up the appointment. The hardest people to sell are your friends because they know you. If I go talk to Cairo, Georgia, and some of my people I grew up with in high school, you think they'd buy life insurance from me or invest $100,000 in me? No way, because they remember little Art, right? Well, so what I'm going to do with you, you set up the appointment, I'm going to go with you, I'm going to sell for you, I'm going to recruit for you, I'm going to help you build a team. All you got to do is set up the appointment. And you know what the first questions they all going to ask you? It's what I say to set up an appointment. My response is, that's easy. I don't know what you say. He's your friend, right? You say whatever you got to say to set up an appointment, right? I mean, his friends talk. See, do you understand? See, is that the danger in sending your people to professional so-called sales trainers, right? Or are you set? I mean, I don't know. It just... See, Prudential's so they train life insurance agents. They trained how to get on a telephone and make an appointment to a stranger. They trained how to go in a stranger's home and fast talk and hard close salespeople. A.O. Williams was friends talking to friends, right? Hey,
We took the new recruit to the kitchen table. That's where we did our training. Coaches believe practice makes I got a friend. His name's Larry Stevens in Palm Beach. He was a banker in Chicago. He gets drafted into Vietnam, okay? The guy's never hunted. He's never shot a gun. Like I'm not a hunter, right? So he's getting drafted into going to war, right? Well, do you think all of a sudden they send him off to boot camp, you know, and they put him in a classroom and start, now this is what you're going to do. This is how you recognize the enemy. And this, if you'd like to create a dialogue with him first, okay? So you wave a little white flag and you say, can we talk? Can we have a cup of hot tea, right? Right? No. They take you off to Paris Island, right? And the first thing they do is they put boots on you and a big pack tag, and they give you a rifle, and they start running you on these obstacle courses and getting you in shape, right? And they start teaching you how to shoot, right? See, coaches believe in practice. You practice until you're perfect, right? You don't put nobody in a dadgum classroom and teach them a bunch of crap, right? This is a true story. His third month, they ship him off to Vietnam. Bob Buson went to Vietnam. His third month, Bobby, he went to Vietnam. His first day in Vietnam, they're walking out in the rice paddies. And the Vietnamese are trained to kill the head man, I think second lieutenant or whatever it is, okay? How many of y'all went to Vietnam? Any of y'all? Yeah. They're walking in rice paddies. He's back there in the line, you know, walking in the rice paddies. First day out, they kill the head man, okay? So then they promote everybody up. The second day, true story, he's told me this, second day out, they walk out in the rice paddies. They killed the lead man, right? Third day out, they promote this guy, his third month in the business, you know, and he's the head man. Everybody's following him out in the rice paddies, right? Well, see, that's the way we trained our people. We took our people, our rice paddy, our football field was the kitchen table. We took a new recruit to the kitchen table and showed him a live prospect, right? We showed him live problems. We picked up the policies, we picked up the financial information, then we took it back to the office. We took the new recruit back to the office and we showed him how to dissect a policy. Now, is that better than sending them to Tom Hopkins and him talking about overcoming objections and all that bullshit? Right? Ain't that right? Okay, let me tell you something else that gets me about this. Now, I hate this worse than you hate listening to it, okay? Because I'm getting tired of it right now, okay? But this is so stupid, okay? I never did it, okay? I promised everybody, I said the only way you can lose money is what? Not set up appointments, right? You set up appointments, I'm going to go with you, I'm going to make the sales for you, I'm going to recruit for you, I'm going to help build you a team, right? Okay. So, let's say it costs $100 to come to A.O. Williams, right? You get your license, right? Now, let's say you send him to Tom Hopkins. He charges $200. And then while you're there, he wants to sell you some books and tapes, right? So that's another $200, right? So now you got $500. So now I've got to make him $500 so I don't want to leave a lot of dead bodies around. Your reputation's everything, right? You don't want people to leave A.O. Williams and say, well, those scum-sucking dogs, you know, they talked me into coming here and it's nothing but a sham, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So what I want to do is for that $100, I'm going to train you. All you got to do is set up an appointment, right? So if I go make 3 sales with him, let's say, he's going to have about $300, $400 in the bank over here. And all he's got to do is get a license for that, right? See, somebody's dreaming, we want everybody to accomplish what they want. Some people are going to have a dream. I'd like to just make $300 or $400, go buy a TV, sit home and watch it. And that's great, that's wonderful, okay? He's accomplished his dream. Some people are going to want to come in here and make $30,000, pay off all of his debt, And that's all he wants. He don't want to become an RVP, right? Does that make sense? And he feels good. So you got to look at the odds again. You don't want a guy to go and you spend a lot of money on the front end and then be disappointed. Does that make sense? All right, now listen to this. We started recruiting a lot of people, and then we created what we call fast start schools. Okay? We'd have a 2.5-day fast start school where we brought all the people in, and we'd have all of our top people like Bob and Andy and John and Bob Turley and Jenny Carter and all these people, speak. And you know what they spoke on? The crap we're talking about right here, right? We didn't talk about sales techniques, training, talking to strangers, all this kind of stuff, right? We were building crusaders, right? Now, this is a true story. This week at our Bible study, we always have somebody come in and be a guest speaker. So he came into Highlands Country Club right up the road here, Highlands Country Club. We had about 200 guests there, and it was the founder, the CEO of Ritz-Carlton. His name is Horst Schultz. Is that right, Angela? Horst Schultz. He wanted he since has left Ritz-Carlton and started a management company, and he wanted to manage Old Edwards Inn. He was looking for like unique properties and unique locations and blah, blah, blah. But we didn't want him because we wanted an individual here in town, in a small town. So the guy that started Ritz-Carlton is speaking to us. I've never heard another person say this other than A.L. Williams in my whole life, and I've met a lot of great ones, okay? He's sitting there. John was with me. We were sitting at the table. He was about 20 feet from us, John. And he says, I built 87 hotels in Ritz-Carlton all over the world. And the first thing a person goes to when we're recruiting him, he said, he was from Germany. He said, I started as a dishwasher. I had a high school education, okay? I worked as a housekeeper. I worked at every level all the way up, and I became the CEO. See, that's the way smart people hire people that have done it, right? They don't go to Yale and crap like that, right? And so he says, I started as a dishwasher. Okay, I started as a dishwasher. And I'm sitting there saying, wow. He said, all 87 Ritz-Carlton hotels around the world, every person that's recruited, it's mandatory that they go to a 2-day school. And all we talk about, we don't talk about your job is washing dishes or you're a chef and this is what you do and these are your hours and this is your responsibility and if you don't do it, we're going to fire your ass, like a boss does, right? He says all we do for 2 days is sell the dream. We sell the dream. We tell everybody that works at Ritz-Carlton, if you start out as a dishwasher, hey, these are the exact words. He said, I want you to become the CEO of Ritz-Carlton, just like I did, right? If you come to work as a housekeeper, if you come to work as a chef, if you come to work as a vice president, I want you to know you're the most important person in this company. If you screw up, people are going to leave Ritz-Carlton and say, they ain't worth a crap, I ain't never going back to a Ritz-Carlton in the world. He said, your job is the most important job in this company. I want you to know that. Now listen to this. He claims he's the first person to do this. Probably so. I don't know. I'm not in that part of the hospitality business. He said, I gave every person at Ritz-Carlton that works a $2,000 limit to where if we screwed up, let's say that there were a waiter at a table and the dessert turned out to be crap. Bobby, he gave that waiter a $2,000 opportunity to say, I apologize for that. That's not our quality. This meal is complimentary. So he gave him a $200. Ain't that something? Brilliant, brilliant. I don't know what that cost Ritz-Carlton, but they made millions of dollars off that. Is that brilliant? That was A.L. Williams. That was A.L. Williams. We brought people into a 2.5-day fast start school. Now, I'm tired of this. I mean, I think you get the point about training them, right? Okay, I'll give you one other thing. Okay, get your pamphlet out, if you will.
on Napoleon Hill 6 steps. To me, this was a life-changing event for me as a football coach working part-time in this business. Folks, I went to Napoleon Hill's deal, and I sat down. I'm going to take the time. Now, I got a bunch more stuff, but I ain't going to go through it, okay? I mean, I've covered basically most of the concept. Okay, I'm tired of talking about training, okay, because you know what I mean, right? You train crusaders and warriors, not life insurance agents, like 90% of you are doing in the room right now, okay? All right, look. Okay, so anyway, I go to Napoleon Hill's. It's not clear. All right, you got a clear copy. Get it out. All right? All right, let's look at it. Okay, you got to have a specific goal. Okay, I spent a week or 2 or 3 thinking about this, right? Napoleon Hill told me personally, he said, I spent my entire adult life looking for the common denominator of all successful people. And I found it. All successful people did 6 things. They did 6 things. Now, this applies to all professions, right? Now, this particular thing, what I was concerned about was being financially independent, right? Somebody else might be interested in building Apple computers or whatever, right? But mine was financially independent. So I spent maybe 2 or 3 weeks on this thing. This is a big deal. I did this with every new recruit at A.L. Williams for years. Talked about it at every fast start school for years. Okay? So you got to have a specific goal. I said, what's my goal? I was making $10,000 a year as head football coach, another $10,000 or $15,000 as part-time in this business. So I said, you know, if I could keep my standard of living like it is right now, we lived in a 3-bedroom brick home. Angela had a car, I had a scooter, okay? And I said, if we could just keep our standard of living same, and I could make $30,000 off my investments. If I could make $30,000 off my investments, I can be financially independent and nobody could put their thumb on me. I mean, I could tell everybody to get screwed. Do you know what a wonderful thing that is? You know what a wonderful, I don't do it all the time, but when I need to, I do it, you know? Ain't that something? That's what my goal was. Eve's, that's what people like me and you want, right? Okay, so I said $30,000. Then he said you got to have a specific time. So I started thinking. I said, okay. I just went full time. Just went full time with ITT. I said, okay, how long can I do this crowd? Okay, before I become financially independent. And I said, well, 10 years. I mean, that's what I figured I was going to, I mean, this has got to be a personal thing, right? For some of you, it might be 15, 12, 40. Okay, for me, it was 10 years. I said, hey, you know what? When I went full time and they gave me that $25,000 salary, I had to go out to Denver 1 week every month. They had a lawyer. I don't know, Bobby, if you were in there as long as we were doing that. Probably weren't. But they had a lawyer, and they'd analyze me and all that kind of stuff. And one of his conclusions was that we're so fanatical, we work so hard, we're like professional athletes. And we have the danger in doing it our way, from the company standpoint, from ITT standpoint, is we have a limited lifetime. You can't work like this very long, you know? Like a running back in the NFL has about a 4-year lifespan, right? And they said, these people are maniacs down there, you know? They can't work like that forever. Well, they were wrong, but that's what they said, okay? But I said, okay, I got 10 years. I can kill it for 10 years, okay? Then you got to write it down. Now, this sounds so simple, folks, but when Napoleon Hill says, I spent my entire lifetime looking for the common denominator of all the successful people I studied, this is what I found. Now, that got my attention, right? Okay? So he said, you must write it down. I got a little piece of paper out, and I wrote it down. You see it right there, okay? And then I said, okay. He said, okay, it's not good enough to say I want $30,000 and I'm going to do it for 10 years, and you write it down. He said, you got to have a plan. You don't just fiddle fart around, right, and become financially independent. You got to have a plan that you can work, right? This is hard to believe. I had $40,000 that I'd saved. I said, if I committed that $40,000, and if the mutual fund does what it's done every 10-year period since the Great Depression back in the 20s, 10% interest, my savings would be $100,000. Okay? So I would be $200,000 short, right? And so I said, okay, got my little compound interest table out, and I said, it's going to take me $1,000. See the third paragraph? $1,000 at 10% interest to get $200,000. You know what? You know what? I was already doing that, but I didn't have this formula down in my head, right? So that light bulb started to come on. I was already doing it. I said, I can do this for 10 years. And then step number 5, you got to decide what price you're willing to pay. The toughest decision I ever made in my life. The toughest decision I ever made in my life. Tougher than starting A.O. Williams. Because I was so fed up with corporate America, I was going to do something else, start A.O. Williams, to go back and coach. Okay? Is I had to give up coaching. I had my best football team coming back. And then number 6, you got to think about reaching that goal every day. Every day. Folks, I didn't think about it every day. I thought about it multiple times every day, especially when I was hurting, right? I would go back and look at that thing, and I said, man, I've only got 5 years to go. I've only got 5 years to go. Does that make sense? Yes. It changed my whole life. Now look at this other thing I gave you. Now I would use this some. Okay? If you want to be a millionaire and you get a 12% interest, which most people feel like a mutual fund's average, blah, 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 okay? Okay? Time is the key, okay? So you talk to your new recruits and then you talk to your clients too. If you do, in 10 years, you got to save $4,000 a month. That makes sense. I'm not going to go through all this crap. You got to do some of this crap for yourself, right? I can't do everything for you, right? So, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? But going over to the IRA, that's what I sold. Look at IRA. If you start and you got 40 years, right? 40 years, you put in a mutual fund and you got $5,000. I think they've increased it a little bit now, right? To maybe $5,500. What they do at East, y'all got something like this in Canada? Okay. So you put $5,000 in at Eves. You're going to have $5 million in $45 million. In a cash value life insurance policy, you lose your die, you have $30,000. Ain't that some crap? Now, if you and your wife put your max into an IRA, that's $10,000. You're going to have $10 million. That changed my life. That was one of the most electrifying moments in my life where I saw a real plan where if I did smart things, I could be financially independent and I could tell everybody in the world to go get screwed. Right? What a dream. What a dream. I spent every fast start school, I spent every recruit I personally recruited, I spent I did that on everybody. Is that unbelievable? Hey, we're fixing to take a break, but I want you to watch this short video. You know, Andy Young was the kind of person that wasn't supposed to make it at AOE, as we believed in recruiting 4 and 5 pointers, you know, people that were married, had kids, owned a home, had a job, making a decent income. And here was a kid right out of college, was a football player. In addition to being a football player, he was an offensive lineman. And all of us coaches call those people the hogs, you know. And so you had a young hog that wanted to go in business at AOE. And so what Andy possessed is what all the great ones possessed. He had the eye of the tiger. Andy Young wanted to be somebody so bad, it was absolutely unbelievable. And you know, we had that first wave of people that came into A.L. Williams, and all of us were coaches or people that played on a team. And then we had this second wave of people, and Andy was part of this second wave of people, and tons of those people became giants in A.L. Williams. But I think as I look back on the history of A.L. Williams, Andy Young was the best
of that second wave of people.
I chose to win. That's why I have to be at every meet. Larry Waddell calls, I'm there. I don't care what else is going on. Bob Turley calls, I'm in. I chose to win. I don't have any decisions to make about that. You got to get to a point where you don't make any more decisions about that.
So really got things moving in North Carolina, and once we got to a point where we were about to go to RVP, moved my family to Maryland, moved in with my mom and dad, hauled a U-Haul with everything we had, and got up there, stayed with my mom and dad for 6 months, had a 15-year-old car. I think the company might have been in 13 states, and we were expanding, and so when it finally opened up a year into the business, we were out there fighting every day to see what we could do,
We start off with this little diagram. We got DC here. We got Northern Virginia. We got Maryland. We're selling a dream now. I'm sleeping on the floor. And I said, this DC area, there's a beltway around it. Got the Potomac River coming down. We're going to start right here, and we're going to put offices all around, and we're going to dominate this map. And when we get done with this, we're going to head up the East Coast and go take the entire Northeast. But we're going to do, I was broke. I was sitting there with nothing, drawing that map on the board, telling 4 or 5 our brand new recruits, big eyes, and all they knew is I had a vision. I saw something big that I was a part of. They saw something big that they could be a part of.
So starting out, we were in a new area, Maryland, and there wasn't really a whole lot going on there. We were trying to get some events going, some kind of, environment. And Atlanta, of course, was 12 hours away driving, and Larry Waddell was 6 hours away. So we plugged into his stuff every other month, and then we started going to Atlanta. And we started that in a car, it was 4 of us in a car, and then that turned into a van, and then a second van, and a bus, and so we really got things moving. We got 17 buses on one trip.
But it starts small. It starts with 4 people going to Atlanta. It starts with you taking a stand. And that's the way you're going to do something big in this business, and it's going to start with you in that chair.
Well, early in the business, Art, he made no bones about it. First meeting I went to, Art said, if we're good enough to make it. He said that at every meeting, but from day one, that's what I heard. And I remember sitting, after I built 80 RVPs, I'm sitting in the insurance commissioner's office in the state of Maryland, 29 years old, and, they're trying to cease and desist and all this stuff. And 2 days later, nothing happened because nothing was going to happen because everything we did was right. And people ask me today, they say, well, how'd you feel about, being under the gun like that and everything you'd built? You got 80 RVPs and you put everything on the line and the state's kind of coming after you. There was not 1 second I thought we were wrong. I knew we were right the whole time. So, it didn't really matter what they threw at us. When you're right, you're right. And we went out there, we prevailed, man. We got the job done, and look at us now.
How many people know you're in A.L. Williams? Every 7-Eleven, gas station, Stop and Rob, every little store in between my house and the office and back, everybody knows I'm in A.L. Williams. I always have my A.L. Williams jackets on and buttons. I'm always talking a little bit about it. I don't ram it down their throat. I don't take a caveman approach, but they all know that I'm in the business. I'm stupid enough to think that long range, I'm going to recruit everybody. I don't know if it's possible or not, but a lot of people, when they walk in, they think, well, that's A.L. Williams right there. There he is right there.
Yeah, being a college football player, originally I thought I was going to go to the NFL and have that big career, and that never really took off. And I think the biggest contract when I came out of school was $1 million over 2 years. And I came in here and, was able to build that to over $20 million in pay. That's an amazing business that we started from scratch, pulling a U-Haul just with dreams and hopes, trying to get something going, It's just an amazing business. Great people to be around.
Andy's record was absolutely unbelievable. In 35 years, Andy produced 198 RVPs, 34 SVPs, 21 NSDs, 7 SNSDs. He had 4 people making over $1 million a year, 106 over $100,000 a year. Andy had a payroll of $2.7 million a month, $32 million a year. $320 million payroll over 10 years. In the next 31 years, Andy's business is going to be worth over $1 billion.
What a stud. What a stud. To have a great business, eventually you got to have success you can show people, right? Man, we had some people that knocked it out of the ballpark. Those original people for the first 2 or 3 years were mostly coaches or people that had played on a team, Then we had this next generation of people that came in, Andy Young, and we had some studs that did some mind-boggling things.
And I'm always now in my retirement thinking back and say, who are the greatest? Who are the greatest people? I believe the greatest single leader of that second wave of people that took us to unbelievable heights was Andy Young. So this old hog became one of our greatest All-Americans. Okay?